Jake Morrison stood at the window of the defense station, watching the sun set over New Haven. The sky turned purple and orange, just like Earth sunsets he remembered from his childhood. Below him, the city lights began to twinkle as 2 million humans settled in for another peaceful evening on their new world. New Haven had been humanity's greatest success story. For 37 years, colonists had built cities, farms, and factories on this distant planet. Children who had been born here had never seen Earth. This was their home now. Jake sipped his coffee and checked the daily reports. The mining operations were ahead of schedule. The new hospital in South Ridge was almost finished. Trade ships from other human colonies arrived every few weeks. Life was good. Dr. Lisa Carter burst through the door, her face white with fear. She clutched a data pad in her shaking hands. "Jake, you need to see this right now," she said, breathing hard. Jake set down his coffee. Lisa was the head of the Deep Space Monitoring Station. She never got excited about anything. If she was scared, something was very wrong. "What is it?" Jake asked. Lisa activated the main screen. It showed the edge of their solar system, where space seemed empty and peaceful. But the sensors told a different story. "Massive hyperspace distortions," Lisa said. "Something big just dropped out of faster-than-light travel." "Very big." Jake studied the readings. His blood turned cold. The energy signatures were enormous, far larger than any human ship. "How many contacts?" he asked. "Over 300 ships," Lisa whispered. "And they're not human." Alarms began blaring throughout the station. Jake ran to the communication center and opened channels to every defense platform and ship in the system. "This is Commander Morrison to all units. We have unknown contacts approaching. Battle stations. This is not a drill." Captain Ryan Brooks responded from the CNS Defender, the largest ship in their small defense fleet. "Jake, we're reading them too. Whatever those things are, they're massive." Jake looked at their forces on the tactical display. 12 frigates, 3 destroyers, and 6 orbital defense platforms. It had seemed like enough to protect a peaceful colony world. Now it looked pathetically small. "Ryan, take your ships and intercept. Try to establish communication. Maybe they're friendly." But even as Jake said it, he knew better. Friendly aliens didn't arrive in massive war fleets. The alien ships moved fast, covering the distance from the system's edge in just a few hours. As they got closer, the sensors revealed their true size. The smallest ships were larger than human destroyers. The biggest ones were like flying cities. Captain Brooks led the human fleet out to meet them. Jake watched on the main screen as the tiny human ships approached the alien armada. "Unknown vessels. This is Captain Ryan Brooks of the Colonial Defense Force. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came not in words, but in weapons fire. Beams of energy lanced out from the alien ships. They were unlike anything humans had ever seen. The beams seemed to twist space itself, bending around the human ship's shields like they weren't even there. The frigate CNS Guardian simply vanished in a flash of light. Then the CNS Liberty. One by one, the human ships died. "They're not even slowing down." Ryan's voice crackled over the radio. "Our weapons aren't doing anything to them." Jake watched in horror as humanity's defenders were wiped out in minutes. Only Captain Brooks's ship remained, badly damaged and falling back toward the planet. "All ships retreat to the orbital platforms," Jake ordered. "We'll make our stand there." The orbital defense platforms opened fire as the alien fleet approached. Massive particle cannons that could crack asteroids focused their power on the lead alien ships. The beams struck their targets dead on, and did absolutely nothing. The alien ships didn't even slow down. Their hulls absorbed the energy like it was nothing more than sunlight. Dr. Carter ran calculations on her computer. "Jake, those ships are using some kind of adaptive armor. Every time we hit them, they become more resistant to that type of weapon." "Then we hit them with everything at once," Jake said. He opened channels to all the remaining platforms. "All units concentrate fire on the lead ship. Every weapon. Full power, right now." The space around the alien ship lit up as dozens of cannons fired at once. Plasma bolts, particle beams, and nuclear missiles struck the target in a display of human firepower that should have destroyed anything. The alien ship emerged from the fire cloud completely undamaged. Then, it returned fire. The beam that struck Platform 7 was different from the others. It didn't destroy the station. Instead, it seemed to tear it apart piece by piece, the metal structure coming undone like someone was pulling apart a puzzle. The 3,000 people aboard had time to scream before they died. Jake realized they weren't just fighting superior technology. They were fighting something that treated the laws of physics like suggestions. "Ryan, get your ship down to the planet," Jake ordered. "Warn the cities." "What about you?" Captain Brooks asked. Jake looked around the command center. His people were still working, still trying to fight an impossible battle. "We'll hold them as long as we can," but holding them meant dying. Platform after platform fell to the alien weapons. Each one took hundreds of good people with it. Jake opened the emergency channel to Earth. It would take months for the message to reach humanity's home world, but he had to try. "This is Commander Jake Morrison, New Haven Colony. We are under attack by unknown alien forces. Our defenses have failed. The enemy possesses technology far beyond our understanding. New Haven has fallen. They are coming for you next. Prepare for war." As he finished recording, the station shook. The aliens had found them. Through the window, Jake could see the alien ships descending toward the planet. They were beautiful and terrible, their hulls flowing like living metal. Some looked like sea creatures from Earth's deepest oceans. Others defied description entirely. The largest ship settled into orbit directly above the capital city. It was the size of a small moon, casting a shadow across an entire continent. Jake's communication officer looked up from her station. "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it on speaker." The voice that filled the room was cold and alien, speaking perfect English through some kind of translation device. "Humans of New Haven. You have fought bravely, but uselessly. We are the Zelkari Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. Surrender, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will make you suffer for generations." Jake grabbed the microphone. "This is Commander Morrison. We will never surrender." Alien laughter echoed through the speakers. "Your species always says that. You will learn better." The communication cut off. Through the window, Jake watched smaller ships begin landing in the cities below. The occupation of New Haven had begun. By dawn, the skies belonged to the enemy. Humanity's newest world had fallen in a single night, and Jake Morrison knew that this was only the beginning of something much worse. 3 months had passed since the Zelkari ships darkened New Haven's skies. Dr. Lisa Carter crouched in the ruins of what used to be Central Hospital, watching through broken windows as alien guards herded another group of humans toward the processing centers. The aliens moved like predators, their tall bodies covered in what looked like living armor. Their faces were hidden behind masks, but their movements showed no mercy. Children cried as they were separated from their parents. The elderly were simply left behind to die. Lisa had seen enough. She crawled back through the rubble to where her resistance cell was hiding. 12 people. All that remained of the hospital's staff of 200. Another transport ship landed this morning. She whispered to the group. They took 3,000 people from the downtown district. Dr. Gary Hughes, who used to run the children's ward, shook his head sadly. "Where are they taking them?" "I've been monitoring their communications," Lisa said. "Some go to the mining ships for slave labor, others—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Others what?" asked Nurse Kelly Adams. "Others go to their research ships. For experiments." The group fell silent. They all knew what that meant. The Zelkari weren't just conquering human worlds. They were studying humans like laboratory animals. Across the city, Lieutenant Amy Scott led her own group of survivors through the underground tunnels. She had been a police officer before the invasion. Now she was one of the most wanted people on the planet. Her team consisted of 8 former cops and soldiers who had escaped the initial roundups. They lived in the old subway system, coming out only at night to strike at alien supply convoys. "Target approaching," whispered Officer Pete Williams from his position near the tunnel entrance. 2 guard vehicles and a transport truck. Amy checked her weapon. It was a modified hunting rifle with ammunition they had stolen from a Zelkari armory. Regular bullets bounced off alien armor, but these explosive rounds could sometimes get through. "Remember, hit fast and hard," she told her team. "We can't fight them head-on." The convoy passed overhead. Amy's people emerged from manholes and storm drains, surrounding the vehicles. Their first shots disabled the engines. The alien guards poured out, returning fire with weapons that burned holes in concrete. But Amy's team was already moving. They had learned to fight the way humans always fought when facing superior enemies. They used speed, surprise, and knowledge of the terrain. The battle lasted only 3 minutes. When it was over, 2 aliens were dead and the transport truck was theirs. Inside they found medical supplies and food meant for the human camps. "It's not much," said Sergeant Mike Rodriguez as they unloaded the supplies. "But it might keep some people alive for another week." Amy nodded. Every small victory mattered now. They couldn't save everyone, but they could save someone. In the detention camps outside the city, Professor Dan Williams tried to keep hope alive among the prisoners. The aliens had crammed 10,000 humans into a facility built for 2,000. Disease was spreading. Food was scarce. People were dying every day, but Dan refused to let despair win. He organized secret classes for the children, teaching them about Earth and human history. He told them stories about heroes who fought against impossible odds. He reminded them that they were human, and humans never gave up. "Tell us about the old wars again," asked a little girl named Sophie Chen during one of their hidden lessons. Dan smiled. "Well, there was a time when humans fought each other instead of aliens. But even in those dark days, there were people who stood up to evil. People who said no when everyone else said yes." He looked around at the young faces watching him. "You are the children of those people. You have their courage in your blood." But it was getting harder to believe his own words. The aliens took more people every day. Some were selected for the labor ships. Others simply disappeared. Families were torn apart without explanation. The Zelkari commander was a creature called War Prime Zektar. It stood nearly 8 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that looked like black metal. It made regular broadcasts to the human population, always with the same message. "Resistance is pointless," the alien's translated voice would say. "Your weapons cannot harm us. Your governments cannot save you. Submit and your suffering will end quickly. Fight, and we will make you watch your loved ones die." Jake Morrison heard these broadcasts from his hidden command bunker deep in the mountains. He had managed to escape the city during the initial invasion, along with 50 other resistance fighters. Now he coordinated attacks across the entire planet. But coordination was nearly impossible. The aliens had destroyed most communication networks. The resistance cells could only contact each other through dangerous courier runs. Many messages never made it through. "Any word from the other colonies?" Jake asked his communication specialist, former Navy officer Carol Jones. Carol shook her head. "We've tried reaching the other human worlds, but there's too much interference. The aliens are jamming everything. What about Earth?" "Nothing. Either they can't hear us or—" Carol didn't finish the sentence. Jake knew what she was thinking. Maybe Earth was already gone. Maybe the Zelkari had struck there first and humanity's homeworld was just another conquered planet. But Jake refused to believe that. Earth was strong. Earth would fight back. They just had to hold on long enough for help to arrive. The resistance had one advantage the aliens didn't expect. Humans were adaptable. They learned from every battle, every mistake, every small defeat. They studied captured alien equipment and slowly figured out how it worked. Dr. Carter's scientific background proved invaluable. She managed to reverse engineer some of the alien technology, creating new weapons that could actually damage Zelkari armor. It wasn't much, but it was a start. "The key is their power distribution system," she explained to a gathering of resistance leaders. "Their armor draws energy from a central source. If we can overload that source, we can create weak points." Lieutenant Scott tested the new weapons in her next raid. The modified explosives actually cracked alien armor, something that hadn't been possible before. 2 aliens died in that attack, and their equipment was recovered for further study. But for every small victory, there were larger defeats. The aliens completed their orbital platforms, turning New Haven into a fortress world. More ships arrived regularly, bringing fresh troops and new prisoners from other conquered worlds. The resistance learned that 12 human colonies had fallen. Earth remained silent. Hope was becoming harder to find with each passing day. In the camps, Professor Williams watched as more families were separated. Parents were taken to the labor ships while children were kept for the research vessels. The crying never stopped. "Why are they doing this to us?" asked Sophie Chen during one of their secret classes. Dan struggled to find an answer that wouldn't destroy what little hope the children had left. "Because they don't understand what makes us human," he finally said. "They think we're just another animal to be used. But they're wrong. We're more than that, and someday someone will come to remind them of that." The little girl looked up at him with eyes that had seen too much. "When?" Dan took her hand. "Soon, Sophie. Very soon." But as he said it, Dan wondered if he was lying. The aliens seemed unstoppable. Their technology was beyond human understanding. Their cruelty knew no limits. Maybe this was how humanity ended, not with nuclear war or natural disaster, but with slow grinding oppression under alien masters who saw them as nothing more than useful animals. As night fell over New Haven, the resistance fighters prepared for another day of small battles against an overwhelming enemy. They had no idea that halfway across the galaxy, Earth had received Jake Morrison's message and was preparing something the Zelkari had never seen before. The real war was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the fall of New Haven. Lieutenant Amy Scott crouched behind the wreckage of an overturned transport truck, watching a Zelkari patrol march through the ruins of downtown. Her team had been tracking this particular group for 3 days, waiting for the right moment to strike. But something was different about these aliens. They moved faster than usual with an urgency that Amy had never seen before. Their communications chatter was more frequent, more excited. Officer Pete Williams crawled up beside her. "They're agitated about something," he whispered. Amy nodded. She had noticed it too. Over the past week, the alien patrols had become more aggressive, more paranoid. They were looking for something or someone. The patrol moved past their hiding spot. Amy waited until they were out of sight, then led her team back to their underground base. They had important news to share with the other resistance cells. In her hidden laboratory beneath the ruined hospital, Dr. Lisa Carter worked frantically on her latest project. She had managed to piece together a communication array from salvaged alien technology and human equipment. It wasn't much, but it might be powerful enough to reach beyond the planet's atmosphere. For weeks, she had been intercepting Zelkari communications, slowly learning their language and codes. Most of it was routine patrol reports and supply requests. But yesterday, she had heard something that made her heart race. 2 alien commanders had been discussing unexpected resistance in the Sol system and delays in the harvest schedule. They mentioned needing reinforcements and complained about stubborn defensive positions around the third planet. The third planet from Sol Earth, Lisa's hands shook as she adjusted the communication array. If Earth was still fighting, that meant humanity's homeworld hadn't fallen. It meant there was still hope. She activated the transmission array and began broadcasting on the emergency frequencies that Jake Morrison had given her months ago. The signal was weak, but it might reach Earth if conditions were right. "This is Dr. Lisa Carter, New Haven Colony. To any Earth forces. We are alive. Repeat, New Haven resistance is alive. Please respond." For hours she broadcast the same message. Static filled her headphones. Nothing else then. Just as she was about to give up, a voice crackled through the interference. It was faint, distorted, but unmistakably human. "New Haven, this is Admiral Helen Rodriguez, Earth Defense Command. We read you. Hold fast. Help is coming." Lisa stared at the radio in disbelief. Earth had heard them. Earth was coming. She recorded the message and immediately began spreading it to every resistance cell on the planet. Couriers carried copies through the underground tunnels. Coded signals flashed between hidden bases. Within days, every fighter on New Haven knew the truth. Earth was alive. Earth was fighting. Earth remembered them. Jake Morrison stood in his mountain command bunker listening to the message for the 10th time. Around him, his staff officers tried to contain their excitement, but Jake could see the hope burning in their eyes. "How reliable is this source?" asked Major Frank Cole, his intelligence officer. "Lisa Carter is solid," Jake replied. "If she says she intercepted Zelkari communications about Earth, I believe her." Captain Sarah Bell, his operations chief, studied the tactical displays. "If Earth is still fighting after 6 months, they must have put up one hell of a defense." Jake nodded. He had always known that Earth wouldn't fall easily. The homeworld had billions of people and the most advanced military in human space. But he had begun to fear that even Earth might not be enough against Zelkari technology. Now he knew better. Earth was not just surviving. Earth was fighting back hard enough to cause the aliens problems. "We need to start planning for their arrival," Jake said. "If Earth is sending a rescue fleet, we need to be ready to help them." Across the planet, resistance cells began receiving new orders. Instead of just surviving, they were now preparing for a coordinated uprising. Every alien installation was mapped. Every weakness was cataloged. When Earth ships arrived, the resistance would be ready to strike from within. But the aliens sensed something was changing. War Prime Zektar increased security around all major installations. Patrols were doubled. Executions became more frequent. The creature seemed to know that the humans were planning something. In the detention camps, Professor Dan Williams organized the prisoners for what might be their only chance at freedom. He couldn't tell them about the message from Earth, but he could prepare them to fight when the time came. "We need to be ready," he told his secret network of trustworthy prisoners. "When the moment comes, we might only have minutes to act." Former soldiers and police officers began training other prisoners in basic combat techniques. They made weapons from camp tools and machinery. They identified the weakest points in the alien security systems. The children, including little Sophie Chen, were taught escape routes and hiding places. If the uprising failed, at least some of them might survive to carry on the fight. But Dan also made plans for a darker possibility. If the resistance uprising was discovered before Earth arrived, the aliens would massacre everyone in the camps. He prepared hidden explosive charges that could destroy the camp's power grid. If they were going to die, they would take some aliens with them. Lieutenant Scott's team received new targeting priorities from Jake Morrison's command. Instead of just harassing patrols, they were now tasked with gathering intelligence on the orbital defense platforms that the aliens had built around the planet. Amy led a dangerous reconnaissance mission to the primary spaceport, where Zelkari ships landed regularly. Her team spent 3 days observing the facility, counting ships and recording security procedures. What they discovered was troubling. The aliens had turned New Haven into a fortress world. Massive weapons platforms orbited the planet. Fighter squadrons patrolled constantly. Ground-based missile systems covered every approach route. It was clear that the Zelkari were expecting Earth's fleet to come. They had used the past 6 months to prepare defenses that would make any rescue attempt incredibly costly. Dr. Carter's continued monitoring of alien communications revealed more disturbing news. The Zelkari had built similar fortifications around all 12 conquered human worlds. They were using the colonies as bait, planning to destroy Earth's fleet when it came to rescue them. Jake Morrison realized the horrible truth. Earth's rescue mission might be walking into a trap that would doom humanity's last hope, but there was still a chance. If the Resistance could disable the orbital platforms at the moment Earth's fleet arrived, it might give the rescue ships the opening they needed. Carter worked day and night to find a weakness in the alien defensive network. She discovered that all the orbital platforms drew power from the planet's main fusion reactors. If those reactors could be overloaded simultaneously, it would temporarily disable the platform's shields and weapons. The plan was insanely dangerous. Resistance teams would have to infiltrate heavily guarded facilities across the planet and trigger coordinated explosions at exactly the right moment. Most of them wouldn't survive, but it was their only chance to save Earth's fleet and free New Haven. Jake called together his senior officers for the final planning session. On the table before them were detailed maps of every alien installation on the planet. "We get one shot at this," he told them. "When Earth's ships arrive, we hit everything at once. The reactors, the communication centers, the landing bays. We throw everything we have at them." Major Cole studied the plans. "Sir, the casualty estimates are significant." Jake nodded grimly. "I know. But if we don't do this, Earth's fleet gets destroyed and humanity dies with it." Around the table, his officers accepted their assignments. They all knew they were planning a suicide mission, but they also knew it was the only way to save their species. As the meeting broke up, Jake looked out the bunker's window at the alien ships patrolling the sky. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars, Earth's fleet was coming. Admiral Rodriguez had promised that help was on the way. Now it was up to the Resistance to make sure that help survived long enough to matter. The final battle for New Haven was approaching, and Jake Morrison intended to make the aliens pay for every human life they had taken, even if it cost him everything. Time was running out. But for the first time in 6 months, Jake Morrison allowed himself to hope. Earth was coming, and when it did, the Zelkari would learn why humans had conquered half the galaxy before these aliens had ever heard of them. The storm was building, and soon it would break upon their oppressors with all the fury that humanity could bring to bear. 8 months after the fall of New Haven, the Resistance had transformed from scattered survivors into a coordinated fighting force. Jake Morrison stood in his command bunker, Watching status reports flow in from cells across the planet, what had started as desperate raids had grown into something the aliens were finally taking seriously. Lieutenant Amy Scott's team had successfully infiltrated the Eastern Reactor Complex. Her people now worked as maintenance crew inside the facility, having replaced the human prisoners who had been taken to the labor ships months ago. The aliens barely noticed individual humans, making infiltration possible for those brave enough to try. Dr. Lisa Carter had become the Resistance's chief technology officer, coordinating a network of scientists and engineers who reverse-engineered captured alien equipment. Her team had not only created weapons that could damage Zelkari armor, but had also learned to hack into their computer systems. The power grid connections are confirmed, Carter reported to Jake during their daily briefing. Every orbital platform draws energy from the planetary reactor network. If we can overload all 6 reactors simultaneously, their shields will drop for approximately 8 minutes. Major Frank Cole studied the timing charts spread across the table. 8 minutes. That's not much time for a rescue fleet to break through their defenses. It'll have to be enough, Jake replied. Professor Williams, what's the status in the camps? Dan Williams had somehow managed to maintain contact with the Resistance from inside the detention facility. His network of prisoner fighters was ready to create chaos when the moment came. We have weapons hidden in 17 locations throughout the camp, Williams reported through their encrypted communication system. Former military personnel have trained civilian fighters in basic combat techniques. When you give the signal, we can take control of the guard towers and main gates. Casualties? Jake asked, though he dreaded the answer. Heavy, Williams admitted, but the alternative is watching our people get loaded onto ships bound for alien laboratories. At least this way we die fighting. The weight of command pressed down on Jake's shoulders. He was asking these people to sacrifice themselves for a plan that might not even work. But Earth's message had been clear. Help was coming. The Resistance just had to give the rescue fleet a chance. Captain Sarah Bell coordinated with resistance cells near the major spaceports. Teams are in position at all 3 primary landing facilities. When the attack begins, we'll hit their fighter squadrons on the ground. If even half their ships can't take off, it'll reduce the air opposition our fleet faces. Jake nodded and moved to the main display screen. It showed the positions of all known alien installations across New Haven. Red markers indicated high-priority targets. Blue markers showed resistance positions. The scope of what they were attempting was staggering, but something had changed in the past week. Long-range sensors were detecting unusual activity at the edge of the solar system. Massive energy readings appeared and disappeared in patterns that suggested ships dropping in and out of hyperspace. They're conducting reconnaissance, Carter explained. Someone is watching the system, probably mapping the alien defenses. Earth? Asked Major Cole. Has to be, Jake replied. No one else would be crazy enough to come here. The alien response to these sensor contacts had been swift and brutal. War Prime Zektar recalled all patrol fleets and activated every defensive system on the planet. Zelkari ships that had been spread across the system now clustered around New Haven like angry hornets. More disturbing was the increase in executions. The aliens seemed to sense that their human prisoners were planning something. Public hangings became daily events in the major cities. Families were separated and killed for the smallest infractions. Amy Scott watched one such execution from her hiding place near the Central Plaza. A family of 4 was being marched to the hanging platform for the crime of possessing a hidden radio. The father looked directly at Amy's position before the alien guards put the noose around his neck. He mouthed a single word. Soon. Amy felt tears burn her eyes, but she forced herself to watch. These people were dying because they believed Earth was coming. The least she could do was witness their sacrifice. That night, she led her team in their most daring raid yet. They struck an alien communication relay that coordinated defense platforms across 3 continents. The facility was heavily guarded, but Amy's people had learned to use alien overconfidence against them. The Zelkari still saw humans as inferior animals. They couldn't imagine that their livestock was capable of sophisticated military operations. This blindness cost them dearly as Amy's team planted explosive charges throughout the communication center. The explosion lit up the night sky and knocked out defensive coordination for 6 hours. It was a clear message to every human on the planet. The resistance was stronger than ever, but it also brought retaliation. War Prime Zektar ordered the destruction of an entire residential district in response. 5,000 civilians died in the bombing, their crime being proximity to the destroyed relay station. Jake received the casualty reports in his bunker and felt sick. Every resistance victory came at a terrible price in innocent lives. But backing down now would mean surrender, and surrender meant the eventual extinction of the human race. Dr. Carter brought him news that made the choice even starker. Her monitoring of alien communications had revealed something terrifying. The Zelkari were preparing to begin final processing of all human prisoners. They're planning to empty the camps, she told Jake. Every human on New Haven will be loaded onto transport ships within the next 2 weeks. Where are they taking them? Carter's face was pale. Their home system. For what they call comprehensive biological study. Jake understood immediately. The aliens were tired of managing human populations across multiple worlds. They were going to centralize their human specimens in one location where they could be studied more efficiently. Anyone who survived the journey would spend the rest of their lives in alien laboratories. The timeline had just accelerated dramatically. Earth's fleet had to arrive soon, or there would be no one left to rescue. As if in answer to his thoughts, the bunker's long-range sensors lit up with new contacts. But this time, the energy signatures weren't brief reconnaissance sweeps. They were sustained, growing stronger by the hour. Multiple hyperspace distortions detected, reported his sensor operator. Big ones. Really big ones. Jake felt his heart racing. How many ships? I can't get an exact count, but the energy displacement suggests several hundred vessels. Maybe more. Around the bunker, his staff exchanged glances. This was it. Earth's fleet had arrived, but the aliens knew it too. Every Zelkari installation on the planet went to maximum alert. Orbital platforms powered up their weapons. Fighter squadrons launched from hidden bases. The enemy was preparing for the largest space battle in human history. Jake opened communication channels to every resistance cell on the planet. All units, this is command. Operation Thunder is now active. Repeat, Operation Thunder is now active. Execute your assignments and may God help us all. Across New Haven, resistance fighters emerged from hiding places they had occupied for months. Amy Scott's team moved toward the reactor complex where they would trigger the power overload. Professor Williams prepared his prisoner army for their final battle. Dr. Carter activated the jamming devices that would disrupt alien communications. At the crucial moment, Jake looked around his command bunker one last time. Half his people wouldn't survive the next few hours. But if they succeeded, Earth's fleet would have the opening it needed to break through the alien defenses. Outside, the first streaks of dawn appeared on the horizon. But today's sunrise would be different. Today, the sky would fill with the thunder of human starships coming to reclaim their lost colony. Jake Morrison had waited 8 months for this moment. He had watched his world burn and his people suffer under alien oppression. He had seen friends die and families destroyed. Now it was time to make the Zelkari pay for every human life they had taken. The final battle for New Haven was about to begin. And Jake intended to ensure that when it was over, the aliens would understand exactly what it meant to threaten humanity. The storm was breaking, and its name was vengeance. The hyperspace distortions resolved into the most magnificent sight Jake Morrison had ever witnessed. Through the bunker's main view screen, he watched as Earth's war fleet filled the void of space around New Haven. Not the dozen ships that had once defended the colony, but over 1,000 vessels arranged in perfect battle formation. Admiral Helen Rodriguez commanded from the bridge of the EDF Retribution, humanity's first battle carrier. The massive ship was twice the size of anything humans had built before the war, its hull bristling with weapons that had been designed for one purpose: to make aliens pay for threatening Earth. The 8 months since New Haven's fall had transformed humanity's home world into something the galaxy had never seen. Every nation on Earth had contributed to the largest military buildup in human history. Factories that once made cars now produced starships. Universities that once taught literature now designed weapons of war. Dr. Carter's power overload triggered exactly on schedule. Across New Haven, resistance fighters struck at the 6 fusion reactors that powered the alien defense grid. Amy Scott's team reached their target first, overloading the eastern reactor in a chain reaction that lit up the morning sky. The blast knocked out power to 3 orbital platforms immediately. Their shields flickered and died just as Earth's fleet opened fire. Humanity's new weapons were unlike anything they had possessed before the war. Plasma lances, reverse-engineered from captured Zelkari technology, punched through alien armor like paper. Quantum torpedoes, humanity's answer to exotic alien physics, reduced entire enemy formations to expanding clouds of superheated gas. War Prime Zektar's carefully planned defense crumbled in the first 10 minutes of battle. The alien commander had expected to face the same primitive human ships that had fallen so easily 8 months ago. Instead, Earth's fleet struck with weapons that matched or exceeded Zelkari technology. Impossible, Zektar growled from the bridge of its command ship. These creatures cannot have advanced so quickly. But they had. Humanity's greatest strength had always been adaptation. Give them an enemy to study and they would find a way to match it. Give them 8 months to prepare, and they would find a way to surpass it. Jake Morrison watched from his bunker as human Marines, clad in power armor built from alien designs, dropped from assault ships to retake the cities. The resistance had cleared the landing zones, and now Earth's soldiers poured through the gaps in the alien defenses. Lieutenant Commander Ben Taylor led the first wave into New Angel City. His Marines had trained for urban combat against an enemy that could bend the laws of physics. They struck fast and hard, using tactics that the aliens had never encountered. The Zelkari had become comfortable in their role as occupiers. For 8 months they had faced only desperate resistance fighters with crude weapons. Now they found themselves fighting soldiers equipped with technology that could match their own. Captain Susan Moore's battalion stormed the primary detention camp, where Professor Dan Williams had organized the prisoner uprising. The attack was perfectly coordinated. As human soldiers blasted through the outer walls, the prisoners struck from within. Dan Williams himself shot the camp commander with a weapon he had built from scavenged parts. Around him, former prisoners who had been treated like animals for months showed the aliens what humans could do when properly motivated. For every child they took, Williams shouted as his people overwhelmed the guard towers. For every family they destroyed, but the real battle was taking place in space above the planet. Admiral Rodriguez had brought more than just ships. She had brought 8 months of human fury shaped into the most devastating military force the galaxy had ever seen. The Zelkari ships that had seemed so invincible during the initial invasion found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered. Human fighters, piloted by veterans who had trained specifically to fight aliens, swarmed around the larger enemy vessels like angry bees. War Prime Zektar tried to rally its forces, but the coordination network that Dr. Carter's team had sabotaged left the alien fleet unable to respond effectively. Individual ships fought bravely, but they fought alone. One by one, the orbital platforms fell to Earth's assault. The weapons that had been meant to destroy the rescue fleet were systematically eliminated by ships that should not have existed. Amy Scott's resistance team completed their mission at the reactor complex, then joined the Marine assault on the spaceport. She found herself fighting alongside soldiers from Earth who had come halfway across the galaxy to free her world. "How many ships did you bring?" she asked Lieutenant Commander Taylor as they cleared the control tower. "Enough," Taylor replied, firing at retreating aliens. "Earth doesn't forget its children." The battle for New Haven lasted 18 hours. When it was over, not a single Zelkari ship remained in the system. Some had been destroyed, others had fled, carrying word of humanity's transformation back to their homeworlds. War Prime Zektar himself fell in the ruins of the alien command center. Jake Morrison found the creature there, its exotic armor cracked and bleeding alien blood. The monster that had terrorized 2 million humans for 8 months was dying alone and forgotten. "We underestimated your species," Zektar whispered in broken English. "We thought you were just another conquered race." Jake stood over the alien commander, thinking of all the humans who had died under its rule. "You thought wrong." The liberation of New Haven was complete, but Admiral Rodriguez's fleet was already preparing for the next phase of the war. Earth had not come just to rescue one colony. They had come to ensure that no species would ever again mistake humanity for easy prey. In the detention camps, families were reunited for the first time in months. Children who had lived in terror saw their parents again. Elderly people who had been left to die were given medical care by Earth's doctors. Sophie Chen, the little girl who had attended Professor Williams' secret classes, ran to her parents when the camp gates opened. But she also remembered the lessons about human courage that had kept hope alive during the darkest months. "Are the monsters gone?" she asked her father. Dan Williams, standing nearby with bandages covering his wounds from the final battle, answered for him. "These monsters are gone, Sophie. And if others come, we'll be ready for them too." Across the planet, the work of rebuilding began immediately. Earth's engineers started repairing the damage done by 8 months of alien occupation. Medical teams treated the survivors of Zelkari experimentation. Counselors helped families deal with the trauma of separation and loss. But the most important work was happening in the orbital shipyards that Earth's fleet brought with them. New ships were being built, incorporating lessons learned from both human and alien technology. The fleet that had liberated New Haven was already being reinforced for the battles to come. Dr. Lisa Carter found herself appointed as the new head of colonial defense research. Her first assignment was to analyze captured Zelkari technology and develop countermeasures for future encounters. Humanity would never again be caught unprepared. Jake Morrison was offered a position as Admiral Rodriguez's liaison with the resistance networks that had been established on other occupied worlds. Earth's intelligence services needed his expertise to coordinate uprisings across 12 star systems. "We're going to free them all," Rodriguez told him during their first meeting aboard the Retribution. "Every human colony, every prisoner, every child they took from us." Jake looked out at the fleet assembling around New Haven. These ships carried the combined industrial might of humanity's home world. They represented not just military power, but the determination of an entire species that refused to accept defeat. "When do we start?" he asked. The Admiral smiled grimly. "We already have. The Zelkari wanted to harvest human colonies like crops. They're about to learn that humans make very poor victims." 3 days after the liberation, Earth's expanded fleet departed New Haven for the next target system. They left behind a heavily fortified garrison and a population that would never again be caught defenseless. The age of human expansion was over. The age of human dominance had begun. Across the galaxy, other alien species received reports of the battle for New Haven with growing concern. The creatures they had dismissed as primitive animals had not only survived the Zelkari assault, but had turned it into the foundation for their own military evolution. The Zelkari Dominion, which had conquered dozens of species over thousands of years, suddenly found itself facing an enemy that learned from every defeat and grew stronger with every battle. They had awakened something in the galaxy that none of them were prepared to face. Humanity was coming. And it was bringing everything it had learned about war, survival, and the price of threatening Earth's children. The thunder of human starships would echo across the galaxy until every last human prisoner was free, and every alien responsible had answered for their crimes. The Zelkari had started this war by treating humans like animals. Now they would discover what happened when the animals decided to fight back.